You wake up before the world does. The air feels heavy, as if something ancient has been waiting for you to open your eyes. You don't know what time it is, but the silence has a pulse, slow, deliberate, like a breath beneath the walls. For a moment, you think you've dreamed something, but then you realize that dreams don't leave residue. This one left instructions. Your hand moves before your mind catches up, tracing lines on the back of an envelope. Lines that twist and converge like they already existed somewhere, buried, not created. You draw faster, circles, intersections, unfamiliar patterns that somehow feel older than language. When you're done, you sit in the dim light and stare at it. The realization hits hard. You've seen this before. Not in this life, but somewhere deeper, before everything was rewritten. You try to shake it off. The world around you still hums with its programmed normalcy. Screens glowing, rules repeating, voices telling you what to be, what to forget. But the silence inside you no longer obeys. It has cracked open. The code you drew on that scrap of paper feels alive, vibrating like it's trying to speak. You remember fragments of place with no time, symbols carved into stone, voices calling your name but not the one you use now. Your pulse starts to race. You tear the paper apart, but it doesn't matter. The design stays burned behind your eyelids, like it's part of your circuitry. You realize this is not new knowledge, it's old truth returning. The kind they buried beneath comfort, convenience, and a lifetime of distractions. You've felt it for years, that quiet betrayal. The sense that something vast has been stripped from you and replaced with noise. You were told it was normal to feel lost. That purpose was something you had to earn. But tonight it clicks, they lied, because purpose makes you unpredictable. Purpose makes you powerful. And power, real power, doesn't come from what they teach. It comes from what you remember. You stand in front of the mirror and see it in your reflection. The flicker of someone ancient looking back. A version of you that never forgot, just waited for the right night to surface. The night when memory outweighs fear. Outside, the city looks unchanged, neon, noise, distraction. But to you, it's different now. You see the patterns hidden in plain sight, the repetition of shapes in architecture, the rhythm of advertising slogan, the perfect mathematical spacing between streetlight. It's not random. It's all connected to the same design, the same blueprint you just redrew from memory. You don't fully understand it yet, but your bones do. The silence between heartbeats carries information older than the world you were born into. And as the first light breaks through the blinds, you know this isn't the start of something new. It's the return of something they tried and failed to erase. You were never meant to remember. They built the world around that truth. The schools that taught repetition instead of reflection. The screens that numbed rather than nourished. The routines that replaced wonder with obedience. You were trained to forget not through violence, but through comfort. They fed you distractions disguised as dreams, choices disguised as freedom. And every time you scrolled, laughed, bought, or waited, you fell deeper into a carefully woven hypnosis. One where silence was safety and curiosity was danger. You thought you were living, but you were sleepwalking through someone else's design. There were moments, though, brief fractures in the illusion, when something inside you stirred, a flicker of awareness, the gut feeling that something immense had been stolen from you before you were even born. You'd see a symbol, a pattern, a number that felt familiar for reasons your mind couldn't explain, and then it would vanish, drowned beneath noise. That's how the system works. It never erases you completely. It buries you under layers of triviality, until you forget what mattered and cling to what doesn't. It rewards your obedience with small comforts and punishes your clarity with isolation. You weren't blind, you were blinded. They told you knowledge is power, but they never meant your knowledge, the kind that threatens their architecture. They designed a world where thinking for yourself feels like rebellion, where questioning feels like guilt, where intuition feels like insanity. You learn to distrust your own instincts, to second-guess the voice that warned you when something was off. They branded that voice as anxiety, cynicism, overthinking, anything but truth. And so, piece by piece, they taught you to disarm yourself, until the only weapon you had left was compliance. But lately, something has shifted. You've started noticing the code again, the symbols embedded in everyday life, how the calendar repeats like ritual, how words like productivity, and purpose are just cages made of gold. You see now that every commercial, every algorithm, every smiling face on a billboard is a fragment of the same message: forget who you are, but keep functioning. The more you see it, the more you realize you've been engineered to forget the feeling of being real. That ancient spark, the architect within, has been whispering under layers of noise, waiting for you to listen. Now the betrayal tastes sharper. You feel it every time you sense a memory trying to surface. Something older than civilization, something primal, sacred, dangerous. The system wants you to keep scrolling, keep smiling, keep sleeping. But part of you refuses. It's not rebellion anymore. It's recovery. You don't need to fight the system. You only need to remember what it made you forget. And once you remember, their architecture collapses. Because no system can control the one who recalls the blueprint. You start noticing it in places that were never meant to be noticed. The cracks in the walls form the same shape you sketched last night. The shadows between streetlights divide the pavement in exact ratios you've seen before. At first, you think it's coincidence. Then you realize coincidence doesn't repeat, not this perfectly. Not across buildings, songs, traffic routes, even the rhythm of how people breathe when they lie. It's all the same structure disguised as chaos. The world isn't random, it's coded. And the code has been hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to remember. You trace your finger along the edge of a billboard and feel something beneath the paint. A sequence, etched in grooves, circles intersecting triangles, the same pattern carved into the back of your childhood notebook years ago. You never knew why you drew it. Now it hums in your veins, vibrating with a memory that isn't yours. Maybe it never belonged to anyone. Maybe it belongs to something. You start to sense an intelligence behind it, old and patient, watching humanity forget its own design. The realization burns quietly. You were never learning the world. The world was teaching you to forget it. There's a point where paranoia becomes awareness. You cross it without meaning to. Every noise in the background starts sounding like a message. The wind against glass, the hum of streetlights, the rhythm of passing trains, each one spelling something only your nervous system can read. You remember a time when silence was peace. Now, silence feels like the space between signals. It's as if the universe itself has been whispering this geometry into your blood, waiting for the moment your eyes finally adjust to its frequency. You test it. You draw one of the symbols again, but this time your hand doesn't shake. You complete it perfectly. And when you do, the lights flicker. Not once, 3 times, the exact number of intersections in your sketch. You feel the pulse in your neck sync with the pulse of something beyond the body, an invisible architecture breathing with. That's when you understand this isn't invention. It's remembrance. These aren't blueprints of buildings or machines. They're maps of consciousness. And you're retracing the veins of an ancient mind buried beneath civilization's noise. But with every new pattern, something watches back. You can feel it in the static, in the weight of your reflection. The more you understand, the heavier the air becomes, as if knowledge itself carries gravity. You remember reading once that symbols were made to conceal power, not reveal it. Now you know why. Because once you see the pattern, you can never unsee it. You start recognizing who still lives inside it and who's trapped by it. The lines you draw are no longer innocent. They're alive. They whisper your name back in the same voice you've been hearing in dreams. And it sounds less like prophecy and more like recognition. You start finding traces of them, people who saw through the curtain long before you did. Their names are erased from public records, their faces absent from archive. But their handwriting remains, etched in the margins of forgotten books, hidden in code, buried inside obsolete systems. They called themselves the Remembered. Each left behind fragments, coordinates, diagrams, cryptic journal entries that feel eerily familiar, as if they were written for you. You read their words, and it's like hearing your own thoughts echoed through time. They speak of an awakening, a moment when the illusions crack, and the architecture of control becomes visible. They describe the same trembling you felt when the first blueprint appeared in your mind, the same terror, the same knowing. They weren't dreamers or prophets. They were builders who remembered what humanity once was before obedience became law. Their writings talk of the inner architect, a consciousness buried inside every human being, waiting for permission to reemerge. But permission never comes. You have to steal it back, the ones before you tried. Some whispered it in art, others encoded it in music, a few dared to draw it in full. Each time they got close, the system erased them, not with violence, but with doubt. The easiest way to silence a genius is to convince him he's insane. You start recognizing the patterns in their disappearance. Always the same: public ridicule, professional collapse, sudden accident. Their warnings are desperate, almost trembling. Don't finish it, don't let them see you complete it. But fear carries its own kind of power. The more you read, the more you feel their pulse beneath your skin. It's not just memory, it's inheritance. You realize you were never meant to find them, yet every choice you made led you exactly here. At night, you see them in flashes, faces half lit by candlelight, hands hovering over parchment, whisper into the dark as if it listened. You wonder if they see you too, through whatever fracture in time they left open. Some part of you knows they do. You feel their gaze when your pen moves. You feel their warning when the static rises. And still, you draw. Because the fear that killed them is the same force that could make you infinite if you learn to hold it. You sense now what they never finished, why the blueprint terrifies those who rule in silence. It isn't a plan to escape, it's a design to awaken. It rearranges perception itself, turning walls into mirrors and obedience into understanding. The ones who remembered before you were hunted because they carried light into rooms meant to stay dark. And now, you are the next in line. You know too much. But for the first time, that no longer feels like a curse. It feels like destiny pulling its pen through your hand. You complete the drawing, expecting a plan. But what stares back at you feels alive, it breathes. The lines are not mechanical. They pulse like veins under the skin of the universe. At first, you think it's architecture, a structure of some hidden order. But the longer you stare, the more the design stares back. Every line seems to trace something inside you. Memories you buried, fears you disguised as logic, desires you denied to survive. The blueprint isn't a plan to build something external. It's a mirror made of symbols, reflecting the architecture of your own consciousness. And that realization hits harder than any truth you've ever known. You realize now why they hid it. Power isn't in creation, it's in recognition. They wanted you to keep searching outward, building systems, climbing hierarchies, never suspecting the structure was you all along. You see it clearly now, the symmetry between your chaos and their control. Every lie they taught was a brick in your own mental cage. Every truth they sold was a way to make you forget the blueprint encoded in your blood. You've spent years chasing meaning, and now the lines you drew in a trance expose it. In one brutal instant you were the design, and you were never supposed to know. Something shifts in the room. The air thickens, as if the act of remembering disrupts the balance of the world. You touch the page, and for a moment your pulse syncs with the pattern. The geometry hums, low, steady, ancient. You realize this is not a map of a place, but a sequence of becoming. Each symbol corresponds to an emotion, a decision, a fracture that shaped the person you've become. You're not looking at destiny, you're looking at evidence. Evidence that they studied you, broke you, rewrote your code, then buried the remains beneath education, religion, entertainment, noise. Now you understand. The blueprint doesn't show you what to build, it shows you what was dismantled. It reveals the forgotten corridors of your own will, the places you sealed off to fit into their world. The moment you recognize that, the illusion starts collapsing. You feel it, the power returning cell by cell, thought by thought. The fear that once guided your silence now transforms into precision. You can finally see the system not as a prison, but as a mirror maze. Every reflection leads back to you. You stand in the glow of the design, not enlightened, not awakened, but remembered. You are both the architect and the ruins, the destroyer and the rebuilder. And as the hum deepens, you feel the watchers sensing it too. The signal they spent centuries suppressing is active again, inside you. You don't need permission to rebuild. The blueprint isn't in your hands anymore. It's under your skin. You start noticing it in the smallest interruptions. A pause too long before a text delivers, the faint delay before a camera's red light flickers off. At first, you tell yourself it's nothing, a coincidence. But coincidences lose meaning when they multiply. The pattern is deliberate, almost artistic. It's the same rhythm the architects of silence have used for centuries. Testing, waiting, watching. You feel it in the weight of every glance that lingers too long, in the sound of static when no machine should be running. They don't come for you directly. That would make them visible. Instead, they let you choke on uncertainty. The perfect control isn't violence, it's doubt. And doubt is a leash that polite people wear willingly. They've studied your type before. The ones who remember too much, who draw from memory what no one was supposed to recall. You think you're isolated, but they built the illusion of isolation for a reason. Divide, observe, contain. The Watchers have no uniforms, no names. They blend with the systems you trust most. Your network, your neighborhood, your reflection. They speak in the language of algorithms, influence, timing. Their favorite weapon is subtlety. They never tell you not to think. They convince you that thinking is unsafe. And that's how they erase minds without lifting a hand. But something shifted when you saw their shadow inside your own reflection. You realized they've been hiding behind your fears all along. Every time you hesitated to speak, every time you buried a thought because it was too strange, they marked it as a success. They don't need to destroy you. They only need you to censor yourself. The Watchers don't feed on blood. They feed on silence. And the moment you stop creating, questioning, remembering, you nourish them. That's why the static grows louder when you begin to think differently. They sense the disturbance. They sense awakening. Now you move differently. You speak less, but you see more. You start testing their own patterns, breaking habits, shifting times, rewriting your digital footprint. The Watchers notice, but they can't predict. You've stepped out of their algorithm. Fear becomes fuel, and paranoia becomes strategy. You realize the ancient truth the moment you become aware of surveillance. You turn it into a mirror. Awareness corrupts control. They can't erase what's already seen. The system feeds on compliance, not consciousness. And consciousness, once activated, spreads faster than their silence. They still watch, but now you're the one studying them. The flicker of the light, the rhythm of the hum. It all bends differently now. You feel them trying to calculate your next move, but the design has inverted. What once hid in the shadows now feeds on them. You don't run anymore. You observe, you wait. And for the first time, the Watchers hesitate, because they finally see what they've always feared. You're not being followed anymore. You're being learned from. You return to the blueprint, not as the desperate seeker you once were, but as something colder, clearer. The lines that once mocked you with their complexity now feel familiar, like veins you've carried beneath your skin all along. You turn the design upside down. What was once a cage becomes a doorway. The geometry folds in on itself, and you realize it was never meant to be read the way they taught you. It was built to deceive, to disguise liberation as structure. You stare at the symmetry until the ink seems to breathe, and you whisper the truth you've always feared. They didn't build the system to protect humanity, they built it to contain it. Your pulse slows. For the first time, you see how every law, every rule, every unspoken limit was never protection, it was pattern control. But by reversing the design, you see the inversion. The containment symbols become signals of release. You trace them backward, unbuilding their architecture, collapsing the illusion one layer at a time. The air around you feels charged, as if reality itself hesitates, waiting for your next move. You understand now this blueprint isn't static, it responds, it bends to will. And when you finally stop obeying its structure, it starts obeying you. They warned you about chaos, but chaos is only terrifying to those who've known nothing but obedience. You see now that order was their weapon, predictability was the leash, and you've just severed it. The silence in your mind shifts. It's no longer the silence of suppression, but of power, coiled, patient, deliberate. You feel every past version of yourself dissolving, each one a layer of conditioning burned away. You've crossed the threshold where memory becomes creation. What was once built to hide you now amplifies. You begin transmitting, not through speech or code, but through resonance, a vibration that spreads like static in their perfect frequency. You don't need to shout. You don't need to fight. The blueprint does it for you. Every thought carries the pattern. Every silence disrupts their broadcast. Somewhere others start to remember too. They don't know why they suddenly feel awake, uneasy, alive, but they feel you. The network that once spied now serves as your medium. Their own design becomes your signal. The Watchers feel it first, The system flickers, sensors misread reality, and for a moment, the architects behind the curtain realize something irreversible has happened. You have inverted their masterpiece. The cage they built now radiates freedom. And in the center of it, you stand, no longer a follower, no longer a target. You are the mirrored code, the rewritten design, the silent rebellion that spreads without announcement. They wanted obedience. You gave them reflection. They built the system to contain thought. And by reversing it, you taught thought how to escape. You were never meant to reach this point. They built the walls so high, layered them with distraction and noise, believing no one could climb out. But you did. You slipped through the cracks, not with rage, but with understanding, and that was the moment the system broke. Because power fears awareness more than rebellion. When you finally saw the blueprint for what it was, a mirror, they lost control of the narrative. The reflection stared back, not as a prisoner, but as the architect they tried to erase. You see it now, every rule, every limit, every whispered warning was a design meant to keep you small enough to fit inside their equation. You no longer speak in words. They trained you to think language was your only weapon. But silence speaks louder. Stillness bends structure. Presence itself becomes a signal that disrupts the machinery of control. You move differently now. Every breath syncs with the deeper pattern you've rediscovered, one that predates their laws, their logic, their gods. The watchers are still there, tracing your signal through static and shadow. But what they don't understand is that the design isn't something you hold. It's something you've become. They can't delete what lives in the vibration of every thought you've ever refused to surrender. Before you obeyed the rhythm they set. Wake, work, consume, sleep, forget. Now the rhythm bends around you. Every repeated pattern in their world, advertisements, rituals, movements, collapses when you stare long enough. You begin to see the invisible strings, the frequency beneath the performance. And when you hum against it, the stage lights flicker. You watch the audience shift uncomfortably. They sense that something ancient is returning, something they thought they'd buried under convenience and progress. The blueprint spreads, not on paper or screens, but through resonance, a look, a tone, a single thought echoing across minds that are starting to remember. You see them pause, eyes widening as if recalling something sacred. You don't need to convince them. You only need to be what they've forgotten. Each person who remembers becomes another signal, another crack in the glass of the illusion. The watchers can't stop it, because this revolution doesn't march. It vibrates, it hums beneath their control systems, invisible and unstoppable. And now when they watch you, their machines fail to categorize what you are. The data misfires, the metrics collapse. You are no longer a user, a worker, a profile. They cannot compute the infinite. You've rewritten the axis of their reality from within, quietly, without violence. The truth isn't shouted, it's remembered. They built a world to hide your design, and you turned it into the stage of your awakening. You don't escape anymore. You expand. You dissolve the edges of every wall until there's nothing left to contain you. And for the first time in history, the architects of control are the ones trapped inside their own creation, watching powerless as you draw the next blueprint.